She had not slept for nights, and the fluorescent lights above seemed like knives pressing into her weary eyes as she walked slowly down the long corridor of the hospital, the air heavy with the sharp smell of antiseptic, the echo of footsteps and the steady beep of monitors filling her ears like a relentless drum. And she wondered if she could go on, because she felt that all the faith she once carried had drained away piece by piece with every patient lost, with every prayer unanswered, with every sobbing family she could not comfort. Yet still she tied her hair back, still placed the stethoscope around her neck, still moved from room to room with the hollow rhythm of duty, though her spirit was breaking. For once she had been the young girl who prayed before sleep, the woman who whispered psalms before beginning her rounds, who believed nursing was her holy calling. But now she felt only like a shadow moving through sterile halls, a ghost with tired hands and an empty heart. And she thought back to the early years when her smile was bright and her hope unshakable, when she told herself that every life touched by her hands was part of a greater story. And she remembered her first patient who whispered "God bless you" with his last breath. How she had walked out of that room certain she was exactly where she was meant to be. But years of loss and pain had stolen that certainty away. And on this night, the burden became heavier than she could bear, because she had just left the bedside of a young mother who had taken her final breath, her husband clutching her hand, their children pressed against him in grief, their cries filling the air like a storm. And something inside her collapsed, as though the fragile thread that had held her together snapped completely. So she stepped into the hallway, leaning against the wall, covering her face with trembling hands, whispering that she could not do this anymore, that the pain cut too deep, that the emptiness consumed her, and her whole body shook as she slid down to the floor. And tears streamed down until her vision blurred. And through the blur, she saw what she could never explain: a soft golden radiance forming at the far end of the corridor. Not the white glare of fluorescent bulbs, not the cold glow of machines, but a warm, shimmering light, gentle like dawn breaking through night, spreading across the hallway where there should have been only shadow. And she froze, her breath trapped, because the light did not blind her but embraced her, steady and tender. And in that moment, the exhaustion in her bones lifted, the ache in her chest softened, and for the first time in months, she felt something stir. Hope, pure and undeserved, rushing like fire through her veins. And she whispered, "Is this you, God?" her voice shaking. And the light seemed to pulse as if answering, not with words, but with presence. And her knees weakened, so she sank to the floor, trembling not with fear, but with awe. And the tears that came were no longer despair, but release. For she realized she had been trying to hold the world in her own hands, forgetting she was never meant to carry it alone, forgetting her calling was not to save every life, but to love, to comfort, to stand beside those who suffered so no one would face the darkness alone. And as she knelt in that brilliance, she remembered the first day she chose nursing, the conviction that it was a way to serve something greater than herself. And she felt that calling return with force, a whisper in her soul reminding her that even in loss there is presence, even in death there is light. And when the glow began to fade, she reached out as if to hold it. But even as it dissolved into the ordinary corridor, she knew it had not left. It had entered her chest, steady and unshakable. And when another nurse passed asking softly if she was all right, she lifted her head and smiled. A real smile she had not shown in so long, fragile yet true. And she rose to her feet and walked back into the rooms where grief waited, but now with strength that was not her own. And as the nights turned into days, she found herself returning to that memory, holding it close when exhaustion pressed in, whispering to herself that the light had not abandoned her. And in the days that followed, she found herself whispering prayers again, at first hesitant and quiet, like the faint stirring of wind before dawn, then stronger with each passing shift until conviction filled her words. Prayers for her patients, for their families, for her own weary heart, And though not every story ended with recovery, she began to see the quiet miracles she had overlooked. A family once divided reconciling at the bedside of a dying parent. A bitter man once hardened by anger, whispering, "Thank you," through trembling lips. A child who laughed in the middle of fear, bringing joy to a room heavy with sorrow. And she realized that her work was not measured only in the lives she saved, but in the love she carried into places where darkness tried to reign. And she understood that the light had not only been a vision, but a revelation. That God had met her in her emptiest hour to remind her that His presence was not confined to cathedrals or hymns, but alive in the very corridors of suffering where His children served and wept. And every step she took after that carried the memory of the golden glow. And whenever despair pressed close, she would close her eyes and see it again. Steady and strong, reminding her she was never alone. Reminding her that faith can be restored in a single breath of grace. And slowly she became a source of strength for others. Her colleagues noticed the calm that radiated from her. Her patients felt her compassion. Families leaned on her presence when they thought they could not go on. And she began to speak gently to others who confessed emptiness, telling them her story not for recognition, but for hope. Because she knew someone was walking their own endless hallway somewhere in silence, believing God was absent and ready to give up. And she wanted them to know what she had discovered. That even in the darkest nightlight can break through. Even in the deepest weariness, hope can rise again. That faith is never gone forever, but waits patiently until the moment a heart opens and grace pours in. And she told them that if they were listening and wondering whether their faith could return, the answer was yes. Because the one who shines will meet them where they are. Even in a hospital corridor at midnight, even in the hallway of despair. And she tells you this now through her tears and through her smile. Reminding you that you are not alone, reminding you that no darkness is powerful enough to block the light. No silence means abandonment, for God is nearer than your own breath. And when she walked into another room heavy with sorrow, she carried that truth with her like armor. And when she touched the hands of patients, she whispered silent prayers, trusting that even if she could not change the outcome, the presence of God was already there. And if you are listening to this story feeling weary and uncertain, let her words be the whisper that steadies you. Yes, your faith can return. Yes, your hope can live again. Because it has not been lost, it has been waiting for you. And when you allow the light to enter, you will know that you were never forgotten. And if this story has touched your heart, we invite you to share your own journey of light in the comments. Because your words may be the spark someone else desperately needs. And please like this video and subscribe to Faithlight Stories so together we can spread hope across the world, one story at a time. Reminding every weary soul that light is real, faith is alive, and love is stronger than the night. So hold on, because the light will find you just as it found her.